Howdy folks, welcome to Cowboy Up, a celebration of the American cowboy. I'm Ron Wilson, Poet Laureate, and I'm mighty pleased to be your host. Today we begin a brand new television series. The goal of our show is simple, to entertain you while honoring cowboy culture through Western musicians and cowboy poetry. The cowboy is uniquely American, and like America itself, the nature of the cowboy draws on diverse cultures and traditions. He is celebrated in music, rhyme, and verse. The legend of the cowboy came to life in the heartland of this nation in the days of the Wild West. That cowboy spirit is still alive today. It's upheld by the hardworking men and women who care for livestock and the land, and by all those who care about the values of the West. The cowboy is recognized internationally as a symbol of courage, bravery, and independence, as well as somebody who likes to have some fun. On this show, we will celebrate the cowboy through some outstanding Western musicians and cowboy poets. Our guests today include award-winning artist Barry Ward and the Prairie Rose Rangers, plus two past winners of the National Cowboy Poetry Rodeo, Jeff Dawson and Trey Allen. We'll also learn about the roots of Western music through Jeff Davidson. Now we invite you to saddle up and enjoy the ride. We're here with award-winning artist Barry Ward. Barry, one of the very favorite songs that you do for me is Our Own Part of the West. And one of the things that really comes through from those lyrics is that you have lived that life. So tell me about that song and how it came about.
Well, thanks, Ron. Thanks for that being your favorite song, because it's one of mine also. But I grew up on a fourth-generation farm, and we had a cattle operation, and I've lived that life. So we throw the term around, he's the real deal, he's the real cowboy. And there's a lot of real cowboys out there, but there's a lot of folks who live the Western lifestyle in their heart, no matter where they live. They can be in the East, they can be in the West. And I just thought about, we should accept them as part of the West also, because it's what we stand for. It's the morals we adhere to. So it was just something I lived, and one day I heard a guy telling somebody, well, he's the real deal, and it clicked. There's a lot of folks out there who, let's don't discard them, because they love the West too.
And so your experience was growing up on that fourth-generation Kansas farm. Tell me how you got started on the music side.
Well, when I turned 35, it's kind of crazy. I had always wanted to play a guitar, so I took a few lessons and became friends with my instructor. And so for 4 or 5 years, didn't do anything with it. And then all of a sudden, my hometown church said, why don't you sing a special? And then all of a sudden, another church and another event. And God has just taken me on an incredible journey, and it's just been a huge blessing for us. We're loving it.
Let's hear Our Own Part of the West by Barry Ward.
Have you ever stood at your back porch window and watched the snow blowing by? Or in your pickup truck with the windows down, feeding cattle as it drifts up high? Or you're dreading the walk down to the stock tank, you gotta break that ice, and your forehead's froze, you got a runny nose, but oh how you love this life, 'cause it's just a little part of what God put deep inside every man's heart, and we're living in our own part of the West. Oh, now winter wheat on a warm spring day, it smells so sweet, and I'm always amazed how quickly it greens up right underneath of my feet. Well, you pick up a pipe 'cause the wheat is ripe, the combines wanna make hay, and I still can smell that dusty old straw on those hot summer days, 'cause it's just a little part in our own part of the West. Oh, and if they tell you you ain't cowboy enough, don't you listen to my friends, 'cause it's not how good you can rope and ride, it's what you've got inside. So live your lives happy and free, don't you let them slip away. And when the storms of life are raging, the master's there to show you the way, 'cause it's just a little part of what God, but deep inside every man's heart, and we're living in our own part of the West. Yes, we're living in our own part of the West.
Well, this story, it's about tougher horses. You know, I've ridden them most all my days. But it's also about the way a cowboy thinks and the way he acts. Some may say simple cowboy ways. But to find out what truly drives him, you gotta look past the boots and the jeans. You gotta draw deep like a hand dug well in the earth and look inside the man and his means. So if we're talking it's all about tougher horses, why, we're not complaining. That's the life that we choose. And a true cowboy won't ponder the what ifs. And he won't spend much time worrying that he'll lose, because he knows where he's headed and the roads he'll have to take. Oh, and sometimes I know it just won't seem right. But he's just stubborn enough to make it all work and prove to us it was all worth the fight. So if we're talking it's all about tougher horses, I guess we're talking it's just the cowboy way. To join up with an outfit and to ride for the brand, or else just get the heck out of the way. So this one's for all of you who ride those tougher horses, and you wear that brand so proud and true. And I know that each and every day when you get up and put your boots on, you're gonna do the best you can do. Because it's all about tougher horses. Tougher horses.
I'm here with Jeff Davidson. Jeff is an outstanding Western performer as well as quite a Western historian. Jeff, let's begin talking about Western music itself. What are the roots and origins of what we now call Western music?
Well, Western music is folk music with a Western lifestyle. It has strong Celtic background or roots to it from a Scottish and Irish origin, but other European countries were also involved. As immigrants came to the United States and then moved west, they of course brought with them their native music. And then that blends in with some Southwestern influence, Mexican and Spanish influence, because the Southwest United States, including California, was at one time part of Mexico. Cowboy music and poetry is about life, and cowboys in particular documented their lives in poetry and song. Someone once said that life is all about relationships, whether that be with loved ones, with the land, with animals that are in our care, with our friends, the community, and with God. And as you listen to Western music, you'll hear about those kind of relationships, and that's really what life is all about.
Your other role that you play, you're also president of the Kansas chapter of the Western Music Association. So tell us about that association.
That association came from a need for Western to reestablish itself with the listeners. Western over time sort of diminished and you might say virtually disappeared from what was country and Western music, which is now just country music. And so the Western entertainers back in 1988 gathered up in Las Vegas, Nevada, and created the Western Music Association. It has grown, and now there are about 12 chapters, one of which, of course, is the Kansas chapter here. And I would say Western music is growing in popularity, not only in the United States, but we have quite a fan base actually worldwide.
We thank the WMA for supporting Cowboy Up.
To me, cowboy is much more than a man on a horse. It's a symbol of a value system. What does a handshake mean? What's the right thing to do? It's almost an instinctual set of behaviors and attitudes and kindnesses.
Well, you have to think about a lot of different things when you say cowboy. A cowboy can be as simple as, the guy on the bike who takes off across the country and he lives on the road. They call those cowboys. He rides an iron horse as opposed to one of flesh and bone. But then the cowboy, in the term that we're talking about it, you generally talk about someone that you feel like has a real strong moral compass, a real strong sense of right and wrong, and the ability and determination to enforce it, and most generally somebody who doesn't look for trouble but who ain't gonna walk away from it either.
Because of the job and survival, one had to be a self-starter, one had to do the right thing when no one was looking. And those are things sorely needed today, and it's very instrumental for me and also inspirational, I think, for society to kind of look at one. And when, as I heard earlier today, as you see with someone on a horse, you just get that whole idea of, okay, everything's fine. And that's what I think of cowboy.
They are people who have an amazing instinct about animals. They know what a steer is going to do before he does it. They know the lay of the land. They know where the draws and timber are that the cattle are going to go hide in. And they know where that rocky hillside is that you better slow down or your horse will trip. They just know those things. And they work really hard at a difficult, dangerous job. But they're a lot of fun, and they love to tell stories, and they love to laugh.
Well, that's someone that actually is out on the ranch or on the farm taking care of cows and riding that horse, or nowadays maybe it's a four-wheeler or side-by-side, but they're still out there day to day. I go out every morning and feed my cows, and It's pretty cool out there this morning, but I got her done.
It means a dedicated, hard-working individual that believes in honesty and that he's here to do his job the best that he can do.
Cowboy suggests to me integrity, a hardworking individual who does the best that they can at what they're doing and does it with integrity at all times.
I think it means, well, to me, I think it means different things to different people, really. But to me, the romantic image of the cowboy was what we saw on television, juxtaposed against what we saw in real life. We were surrounded by cowboys, real horsemen that knew how to work cattle and knew how to ride. We belonged to the saddle club. We rode in parades. So we knew what a working cowboy's life was like, but we also embraced the romantic version that we saw on the silver screen, very much so.
When I first heard of cowboy poetry, I thought it was kind of a new concept, but as I got to listening and studying a little bit, well, I found out that obviously cowboy poetry had been around about as long as the cowboy had. One of the first guys to ever have any of his poems published was a feller by the name of D.J. O'Malley. O'Malley come out of Wisconsin, and he wanted to be a cowboy as a young man, and so he headed over into Wyoming. That was back in the days of the open range, late 1880s, early 1890s. And he spent his formidable years over there in Wyoming punching cows as a trade. Then in time he decided he'd go back home to Wisconsin. And when he got back home, believe it or not, he became a dentist. And aside from pulling teeth, well, he spent a lot of his time with a pen and paper and wrote down a lot of stories and stuff from his days on the range as a working cowboy. One of the first poems of O'Malley's that I learned was a piece that he entitled The D2 Horse Wrangler. And the poem goes kind of like this. One day I thought I'd have some fun and see how punching cows was done, so when the roundup had begun, I tackles a cattle king. Says he, my foreman, he's in town, he's at the McQueen, his name is Brown. Go over and I think he'll take you down. Says I, that's just the thing. Well, we started for the ranch next day, and Brown, he talked most all the way. Said punching cows was only fun, that it was no work at all, that all I had to do was ride. It was just like rolling with the tide, and Jiminy, criminy, how he lied. He surely had his gall. You see, he put me in charge of the caviar, and he told me not to work too hard, that all I had to do was guard the horses from getting away. Now I had 260 head, and oft times wish that I was dead, 'cause when one got away, old Brown turned red, and this is the truth I say. Sometimes the horse would make a break, and across the prairie he would take, just like he was running for a stake, and for him it was only play. Now sometimes I couldn't head him at all, and then sometimes my saddle horse would fall, but I'd speed on like a cannonball until the earth got in my way. Once they led me out an old gray hack with a great big set fast on his back, and they patted me down with gunny sacks and used my bed and all. When I climbed on, he left the ground, jumped up in the air and turned around, and when I busted earth when I come down, Lord, it was a terrible fall. Oh, they picked me up and they took me in, rubbed me down with a rolling pin. Now that's the way they all begin. You're doing well, says Brown, and tomorrow morning, if you don't die, we'll give you another horse to try. Won't you let me walk, says I? Yeah, he said, back to town. Now, boys, I've traveled up, I've traveled down, I've traveled this country all around. I've lived in city and I've lived in town, and I have this much to say. Before you try it, go kiss your wife, take out a heavy insurance upon your life, and then shoot yourself with a butcher knife, 'cause it's by far the easier way.
I'm with Orrin Friesen of the Prairie Rose Rangers. Orrin, tell us a little bit about how you got started playing cowboy music.
Well, it came from all the years of playing bluegrass music. I started playing bluegrass when I was in college, and then after a while I thought, I love cowboy music because that was my favorite growing up. I loved the Sons of the Pioneers and Roy Rogers and Gene Autry, so I thought I'd like to play that sometime. So Ranger Stan from the Prairie Rose Rangers and I started a band called the Home Rangers back in the mid-90s and kind of evolved from there. Of course, we threw the Prairie Rose Wranglers and then the Diamond W Wranglers and now the Prairie Rose Rangers.
One of the great songs that Prairie Rose Rangers play is the Colorado Trail. I see it's voted one of the 100 top Western songs by the Western Writers of America. Tell us about that song.
It's a great classic song. Of course, the Colorado Trail was split off of the Western Trail with one of those later cattle trails in the 1880s. Carl Sandburg actually is credited for collecting that song, finding it, and because of his work, became a popular song, which we love.
Here are the Prairie Rose Rangers taking us along the Colorado Trail.
I'd stayed in Abilene, safe and warm and dry. So we bore ye little rains, wail winds, wail. All along, along, along the Colorado Trail. All along, along, along the Colorado Trail.
Folks, it's been great having you with us. Many thanks to our guests on today's show, Barry Ward, Jeff Dawson, Trey Allen, Jeff Davidson, and the Prairie Rose Rangers. And we appreciate you riding along with us today. This is your host, Cowboy Poet Laureate Ron Wilson, saying, cowboy songs and rhymes lift spirits like the coffee in your cup. So at our next show, please join us as we all cowboy up. Happy trails.
Have you ever stood at your back porch window and watched the snow blowing by? Or in your pickup truck with the windows down, feeding cattle as it drifts up high? Oh, you're dreading the walk down to the stock tank. You gotta break that ice, and your forehead's froze. You got a runny nose, but oh, how you love this life.